I was 15 at the time, with a head full of noise and a heart full of anger. That day, I had a terrible fight with my mom. She said I was ungrateful, and I told her she didn't understand anything. I threw on a light jacket, slammed the door behind me, and walked out into the cold. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I needed to get away. I wandered the neighborhood, then followed an old path that led to the park a few blocks from home. I hadn't been there in years. The place was nearly empty. The benches were cold, the trees bare like they were asleep for the winter. I sat on a bench, staring into nothing, feeling hollow inside. I didn't notice him at first. An older man, with a rough beard and wild gray hair, sat a few benches down. He wore a faded military jacket that had clearly seen better days. He held an empty paper cup in his hands, slowly turning it, not asking for money, not saying a word. Just sitting there, quiet as a shadow. I was about to leave when he spoke. "You okay, kid?" he said, voice low and raspy but somehow gentle. "It's cold out here. Be careful not to catch a chill." I froze. No one had asked if I was okay all day. No one even noticed I was gone. But this stranger, someone who didn't even have a roof over his head, cared enough to ask. I gave a small nod, not really knowing what to say. Then he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a crumpled $1 bill. He held it out toward me. "Go get yourself something warm to drink," he said. "There's a little coffee stand at the corner. I get hot water from there sometimes." I stared at the dollar. It wasn't much, but I knew, even then, that for him, it might be all he had. I can't take this," I stammered. He smiled. Not a wide smile, but a kind one. Soft, like the way a father might smile at a child. "I used to think I didn't have anything left to give," he said. "But then I realized sometimes just a little kindness can save someone's worst day. Go on. It's yours." I took the dollar, my hand trembling slightly, not from the cold, but from something deeper. I had never imagined someone like him, someone with nothing, could still choose to give. I walked away from the park that day, feeling something shift inside me. I wasn't mad at my mom anymore. I couldn't stop thinking about him. His weary but kind eyes, that tattered dollar, and those quiet words about kindness. That night, I didn't spend the dollar. I placed it on my desk like a reminder. I didn't know his name, but I knew I had to go back. And I did. I just didn't know that going back would change my life forever. I went back to the park the very next day, and the day after that. Each time I returned, I carried one quiet hope in my heart, to find the man who gave me his last dollar. For the first 2 days, the bench where he had sat was empty. Cold wind rustled through the trees, and fallen leaves whispered along the ground like voices with no answer. I kept walking around, searching every path, every bench, every quiet corner. But there was nothing. On the 3rd day, just when I was about to give up, I saw him. He was sitting on the same bench, hunched over, hands buried deep in the pockets of his worn-out military jacket. I approached slowly, my heart beating fast. Would he even remember me? He looked up and smiled. "Back for another hot chocolate?" I laughed. "No, not today. I brought you a hot coffee and a sandwich." His eyes lit up as he took the cup from my hands, holding it gently like it was something precious. "Thank you, son," he said softly. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to," I said. "I still don't know your name." He hesitated, then said, "Walter." From that day on, I came by the park every afternoon. Sometimes I brought food. Sometimes I just sat beside him and talked. Walter didn't speak much at first, but slowly, pieces of his story began to surface. He had served in the military. He didn't say exactly where, but he mentioned both Vietnam and Iraq. Maybe he had been to both. He spoke of friends he had lost, of long nights without rest, and the strange feeling of coming home to a country that no longer noticed him. He told me about a head injury, about nightmares. They called it PTSD. Then came the job loss. Then the house. And finally, this park bench. For a while, I thought I'd bounce back, he said one chilly afternoon. But time passed, and people stopped seeing me. After a while, I stopped seeing myself too. That line haunted me. People stopped seeing me. But I saw him. and I wanted others to see him too. I started by telling his story at school. First, to my English teacher. I asked if I could write an essay about someone who changed my life. Then I read it to the class. I told them about Walter, about the dollar, about the kindness of a man who had nothing left. When I looked up after reading, some of my classmates were wiping their eyes. So was my teacher. Things moved quickly after that. The principal called me into his office. Then the school newspaper wanted to run the story. Then the local news. I started a fundraiser, not for me, but for Walter. We began small. A donation box in the cafeteria. A handmade poster with Walter's picture that said, "No veteran should be forgotten," and people responded. Parents brought jackets. A local coffee shop offered free meals. A retired nurse offered to give Walter a health checkup. Even the city council reached out. As for Walter, at first, he didn't believe it. "Why me?" he asked one afternoon. "There are folks out there worse off." "Because you helped me," I said. "Now it's our turn to help you." His eyes filled with tears, but he said nothing, just nodded. 1 month after I found him again, we totaled up the donations. Over $7,000. Enough to rent a small apartment. Enough for a warm bed, a heater, a fridge, a new pair of shoes. Walter stared at the number, speechless. "You did this," he whispered. I shook my head. "No, sir, you did. It all started with a single dollar." That was the day we both realized something. Sometimes the smallest act can create a ripple strong enough to change a life. The day Walter moved into his small apartment was one of the proudest days of my life. It wasn't anything fancy, just a modest 1-bedroom with a warm heater, a clean bed, and a small kitchenette. But to him, it might as well have been a castle. He ran his fingers along the countertop, as if he were touching marble. He opened and closed the refrigerator 3 times, smiling each time I hummed. And when I handed him the key, he just stood there frozen, as if the weight of it was too much to hold. "For me?" he asked, voice trembling. I nodded. "It's yours now. You don't have to sleep on that bench anymore." Tears filled his eyes. He wiped them quickly with the back of his sleeve, trying to play tough. But we both knew this was more than just a roof. It was dignity. It was hope. The community kept visiting. Someone brought curtains. Another brought books. A local veteran group even furnished a place. Walter didn't just get a home. He got his place in the world back. Over the next few months, I visited him every week. We drank coffee at his tiny kitchen table. And he told me stories from long ago, not just about war, but about jazz clubs in New Orleans, fishing trips with his dad, the way his mom used old gospel songs when she cooked. He was full of stories, full of life, but time is fragile. One morning, I knocked on his door, but there was no answer. The apartment manager found him quietly lying in bed, hands folded across his chest, as if he had simply gone to sleep and drifted away. He passed peacefully. He wasn't out in the cold. He wasn't alone. And for that, I am forever grateful. A few days later, I received a small envelope with my name written in careful, shaky handwriting. Inside was a folded piece of lined paper. It read, "You changed everything. You gave me more than a home. You gave me the feeling that I mattered again. Kindness is your legacy now. Keep it going. Walter." I folded that letter and placed it in my wallet. It's been there ever since. Every time I doubt myself, every time I wonder if small things matter, I read it again. Sometimes I take that dollar, the one he gave me, the very last one he had, and I hold it in my hand. I never spent it. I never will, because it was never really about the money. It was about a man who had nothing, choosing to give. It was about how that one act reached farther than either of us could have imagined. It was about how kindness, even when it feels small, can echo through time. If you're listening to this now, I want you to remember one thing. You don't need a lot to change someone's life. You don't need wealth, power, or a grand gesture. Sometimes, all it takes is a single dollar, or a warm cup of coffee, or a few minutes of your time. Sometimes, it just takes a heart willing to care. So the next time you see someone who's been forgotten by the world, someone sitting on a park bench, or asking for change on the street, Don't look away. Look them in the eye. Smile. Ask their name. And if your heart tells you to, give. Give without expecting. Give because you can. Give because they're worth it. Kindness is your legacy now, too. What will you do with it? You know, not everyone will remember Walter's name. Not everyone will speak of an old homeless veteran who once sat huddled on a park bench that cold winter afternoon. But I will never forget, because sometimes a small gesture, a single dollar, a simple "Are you okay, kid?" can light a fire in someone's heart that never goes out. And sometimes it's those who have nothing left to leave behind the most valuable things of all: kindness, sacrifice, and a lesson that never grows old. If you're still listening to this story, if something in it made you pause or brought back a memory you hadn't touched in years, then I'd like to ask you for a small favor. Subscribe to Old Soldier Story. This is a place where stories of forgotten heroes, quiet kindness, and the America we still believe in are told with respect and heart. Click like if you believe kindness still matters, and share this story with someone. Maybe they need a reason to believe too. And most of all, I'd love to hear from you. Tell us about someone kind you once met, or a veteran who made a mark on your life. We read every single comment, because we believe every soldier deserves to be remembered. Old Soldier Story. We tell, so they won't be forgotten. See you in the next story.